specifically, and I realize you can't see me, about the, hold on a second, just checking the camera settings here. Video. Weird. Okay, there we go. Right. So we're going to talk today about the 5 signs of imposter syndrome. All right, so let's get into that today. So I want to share with you 5 ways that you can identify imposter syndrome, but not only just for yourself. So if you recognize them, you can let me know. Also, how do you recognize this with either an employee, a friend, a colleague, a fellow team member? Because imposter syndrome, and I'm not trying to say only women have it, and we don't want it confirming that bias in the sense that women all feel like imposters. However, it does happen quite a bit amongst women. We tend to feel like this more often than not, which is preventing a number of things. So, for example, you may be taking a lot less risks than you necessarily would take if you weren't feeling like you were an imposter. You're likely not taking on the challenging projects that you could be doing, or you've just kind of sequestered yourself more into a lonely type of position, or you just look for more isolation. So both on LinkedIn as well as Instagram Live. So if you're catching it live, then just hit the hashtag replay or send me a DM and let me know what you think. And you can always, of course, include your comments below. I will see the chats as they come up. All right, so let's get into this, into the 5 signs of imposter syndrome. Now, the first sign may be very common or may be really recognizable in the sense that we talk about perfectionism. So this is where you are constantly driving into the details. While you may have the big picture, you need to know every single detail, make sure that every detail is perfect. And what perfectionism actually is much more of an avoidance tactic. So you're avoiding negative emotions, a feeling of rejection or a feeling of failure, because you don't want to experience any of that. So you use perfectionism as the tool to avoid all of that. Now, what happens when you're experiencing a lot of perfectionism or you're pursuing perfect is that you're likely a lot less likely that you're going to embrace any new challenges, and you're mostly driven by shame. So the shame of like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be wrong if I do this, or right, like they're going to reject me, all those emotions there, as well as fear. Now, what you would want to have as a counterbalance, or rather than perfectionism, is really to target excellence and accept that there are going to be mistakes along the way that you need to make in order to learn, to discover, and to actually innovate and to become better along the way. So the first hidden sign of imposter syndrome is that need and drive for perfectionism. Now, I will say the caveat here, as with all 5 of them, actually, I think I even have 6 of them, so I'm going to give you a bonus at the end. But with each of them, it doesn't necessarily mean if you see someone displaying one of these signs that they are immediately suffering or experiencing imposter syndrome from them. Some of this can be also personality-wise, but I want you to understand also that none of this, so that even if you see someone that has a perfectionist tendency, does not automatically link to the fact that they have imposter syndrome. So, but I want to give you, it can, once you identify it, give you ways of opening up that discussion and having that conversation around, hey, you know what, I noticed you're doing this, and then to start digging a little deeper. Now, that is the first sign. The second sign, this is what I call over preparation. All right. So you may have known this. I have had colleagues in the past that could say that super over prepared for meetings or presentations or giving lessons if they were teaching. And what I would mean by that is, for example, you end up having you're preparing for a meeting, but you want to make sure that you can answer every single question. So that person may be researching every single outcome, wants to make sure that they've identified all the possible risks. They have identified every single possible question that could possibly be answered, because to give the answer of I don't know is not done for them. They don't want to run the risks that they cannot answer a question, because as soon as they can answer a question, the interpretation that is made often is that they are a fraud, they don't belong in that room. So in order to compensate for this feeling of not belonging or not being the right person, not having enough value, is by over preparing for meetings and projects and presentations. So if you recognize that within yourself or with one of your colleagues, again, I'm not saying it's definitive that you have imposter syndrome or you're experiencing it. However, it can be one of those signs that imposter syndrome is at play. The third sign we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about overworking. Now, overworking is, you might be the one that arrives early, stays late. This might be one of your team members, your colleagues, where you end up oftentimes sacrificing a lot of your personal time, your family time, and even your self-care in order to do enough work. Now, enough work, of course, that's what do you call those? That's like a moving goalpost, right? Because when do you actually know that you've done enough, and how would you answer that even for your team members or for yourself? And in this, what's driving underneath this working a lot, yes, there may be that feeling of being an imposter, not belonging, and this belief that as long the hours that I work is how I contribute, and that's how I am of value to my organization. This is how I prove my worth. Now, I've debunked that belief in a separate video. So if you are curious about that, then drop me a DM and I will make sure to send you the link to that video. But if you are seeing someone on your team, and again, we're taking the aspect of not just from yourself, but how can you identify this in somebody else? If you see someone else that is always arriving early, always staying late, spending a lot of extra time working, you might be getting emails from them at like 10 o'clock at night with still different tasks to be done or questions, then this is worth a conversation around what is driving this need to work longer. Is it this sense of feeling like you're an imposter? All right, now that's the three. So we've got the first one sign is perfectionism, the second one is over preparation, and the third one is overworking. And while I haven't mentioned it, these are all symptoms, and these are behaviors and actions that I work through with all of my clients within my LeadHERship Edge program. So this is a 6-month coaching program that I work with women leaders. If you're interested in finding out more, then please DM me leader, because if any of these are familiar for you and you think, I'm really ready or I want something different, then I have helped over 50 plus women leaders. I can help you too. So just DM me to find out how we can work together or how I can help you. All right, so let's get further into it. I've got number 4, downplaying achievements. Oh boy, how often do I see this across the board with women? Is that when you are you've got given a promotion or you've been chosen to do a specific task or activity, or you're getting recognized, that there's this almost knee-jerk reaction of, oh yeah, but I was just lucky, right? Or you start attributing that success or that achievement to something that's an external factor, right? You might push it onto your team, which in some ways, I won't disagree, isn't also important to recognize the contribution of your team. What you need to include, though, is also your own leadership capability, all of that you brought into that to achieve that result, right? So we need to stop ignoring your own contribution for the good of the team and include it with all of it, and accept the fact that when your team has achieved something, that you then also are accepting of that compliments, of the recognition for those achievements. So one of the, again, what happens here is you might be downplaying any of your achievements, attributing them to luck, achieving to external factors, or contributing it to completely somebody else, and you were just along for the ride, or you were in the right place at the right time. Okay, so if you are finding yourself downplaying achievements, or someone within your team, your colleagues, your friends, then this could be, again, another sign. Let's dig a little deep under the surface to find out, well, what's going on here? Are you really being more humble, or wanting to just, not want to step into the limelight? Or is there an underlying belief here that you are a fraud, and that you are finding yourself feeling a bit more like you're an imposter in the wrong spot? Number five. Number five is all about avoiding taking any risks. So this is what you'll see here. If someone is avoiding taking risks, they may say no to an next promotion opportunity. I think, and I may get the name wrong, but Corey Berry, I think is her name, is the CEO of Best Buy. One of the things that I found so amazing about her is that when she was asked to be the CEO of Best Buy, she actually wrote a 10-page report as to why she isn't the right person for that position. 10 pages. So you can imagine that there is quite a bit of a sense of like, oh my goodness, I'm not ready for this position. I'm not the right person. Again, all these little signs and signals that there's some imposter play or imposter syndrome at work. And so when that happens, one of those things you'll see is often that you're going to start avoiding risks. So if you recognize this within one of your team members, yourself, or within a friend or a colleague, again, time to dig a little deeper, especially if you know from your perspective that that person is highly capable and could do this position or take that risk fairly easily, or with enough support, they would do really well. So if that is the case, again, dig a little deeper to find out what's underneath the surface. So here's your five, just to summarize really quickly, here's your five signs: perfectionism, over preparation, overworking, downplaying achievements, as well as avoiding taking risks. Now, I also said I've written down six, so I'm going to give you a sixth one as a bonus. Now, this one is about the need for validation. So what you will see is they will be likely asking several times to confirm that this was the right decision, or confirm that this is the right course of action, right? So really looking for that external validation that they're on the right path, that they're on the best path, that they are doing the right thing. So it is playing a little bit onto that perfectionism side of it. And again, but they're looking for that validation from their peers, from their colleagues. Maybe it's from you, is if you're leading that team. So if you're seeing that, that is also, again, a reason to dig a little deeper to figure out what's happening below the surface. What is going on that this person, if they're let me just rephrase this. If they are seeking validation on a course of action because that is how you've laid it out for them, for example, if it's a team member, that it's beyond their scope of responsibilities, that makes sense. However, we're talking about the need for validation, which isn't really adding value. Okay, so in the sense that, okay, well, you should be making that decision. That should have been almost a no-brainer. Then if they're asking for a lot of extra validation, that could be a signal that they're experiencing imposter syndrome. And I really want to be very clear. I call this experiencing imposter syndrome because it's not something that we have to hold on to. Okay, this is something that we can fix, we can adjust, we can manage, we can manipulate into a different direction. So the sixth one is the need for validation. So if you are finding someone that is asking you quite often or multiple times a week, asking you for confirmation whether it's a right decision, whether the action is the right way to do it, or that they, can you just tell me what the best way to do this is? Is this the best way to do it? Then they may be experiencing imposter syndrome at that moment in time. And again, you can dig deeper. Now, if you find someone with at least all a combination of these 6, perfectionism, over preparation, overworking, downplaying achievements, avoiding taking risks, as well as the need for validation, then there's a stronger sense that that they are experiencing imposter syndrome at that moment. All right. I would love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments below or DM me what your biggest takeaway of this today is. Which sign are you going to watch for specifically within your colleagues, or which sign have you seen most often happening around with your colleagues, with your managers, with your peers, with your team members, that has been coming up, and you can start going, maybe there's time to dig under the surface for those ones. I'd love to hear that from you. Just DM me. Also, I've got 2 spots open. Well, actually, no, I'm going to open up a third one. So I've got 3 spots open this month for one-on-one coaching. If you want one of those spots, because I'm telling you, I filled up my spots last month. I'm going to fill them up again this month. So you want, or when you want one of those spots, I want you to reach out to me and DM me leader today so that we can have a conversation. And again, I've helped over 50 plus women leaders over the last 2 years really dive deep, and so that they can step up and be a vibrant leader, one that is loving the work that they're in. They're able to and know they can face any challenge that comes across their path, and they get to be the leader that they want to be, all while leading a life that they love. If that sounds like you, then DM me leader and we're going to have a conversation. For now, let's leave it at that. I thank you so much for joining in, and I look forward to hearing all of your comments as well as all of your messages in the DM. So I appreciate that. All right, have a great weekend.